Howdy, fellas. How are we doing today, huh? You might not know me, and honestly, that's perfectly okay. But today, I'm going to be breaking down my top 15 receiver rankings for the 2025 NFL Draft. These are also pre-combine rankings. As I'm recording this on the 26th of February, linebackers and I think defensive line are already doing some of their team interviews today. Ideally, initially, I wanted to try to get my running back rankings, my receiver rankings, and my quarterback rankings out before the combine started. Most likely, it's only going to be maybe receivers and maybe running backs, basically before any actual real running goes down. Worst case scenario, I'll just wait until after the combine, redo them. But as of right now, here are the top 15 receivers that I have ranked in the 2025 NFL Draft. You might be asking, who am I? What are my credentials? Truth is, I don't got any. I'm just an average guy who has a passion for scouting and for the NFL draft as a whole. And the last few years I've been doing some scouting, taking some notes, and this year I wanted to really be serious about it. Make a big board, have complete rankings for each guy, and I figured why not, make some YouTube videos, post some Twitter clips, and if some people like what I'm doing, then that's great. And if you don't, then hey, I appreciate it. So if you guys end up enjoying this, I'd appreciate the subscribe I'd appreciate if you guys subscribed. And if you guys like the video, that'd be awesome. If you guys think I'm fucking stupid and you disagree with what I say, feel free to go down in the comments and tell me exactly how you feel, because that's what makes this fun, right? It's the discussion, it's the going back and forth, because at the end of the day, no one's right. It's all speculation, and no one can really 100% be sure about how things translate to the league. But without further ado, let's get into my number 15th ranked receiver, and that is going to be Ja'Cory Brooks out of Louisville. He's 6'1", 191. The prospect score that I have for him is 73.08. How I do my prospect scores is I have a certain amount of categories for each position. For receivers, it's only 5 different categories, and I rank them on a scale for each category from 0 to 100. Average that out. That's how you get a prospect score. I would say my ratings aren't 100% based on this prospect score. I look at it as more of a way to see how the athletics line up, because a lot of it is really based off the athletics or the athleticism that a receiver has, and not really based off of production or necessarily traits and stuff like that. So for Ja'Cory Brooks, I have a 73.08 prospect score for him. My true talent is I think he's an early day 3 kind of guy, and I think he's going to end up going in the 6th round. I would say I'm higher on Ja'Cory Brooks than most of other people that I've kind of read up on, because I haven't really seen anyone talking about him. I've just kind of read some scouting reports here and there where people have them ranked, and a lot of people have them a lot lower than this. A big thing for me with Ja'Cory Brooks, and a big thing that's going to stand tall when ranking my receivers, is that I like guys who have proven production against top tier talent. Ja'Cory Brooks was a Alabama transfer, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. So Ja'Cory Brooks, Alabama, I think he initially was recruited to Alabama, transferred over to Louisville. Had in this past year 61 receptions, just over 1,000 yards, 9 touchdowns. Has proven production against top tier talent. He had decent production at Bama. Louisville, obviously, you're playing in the ACC, so it's not as top tier as the SEC is. The big thing for him, I know, which is a knock with a lot of people, is that he, early on, from what was his projected kind of speed, at least off the field on paper, doesn't line up at all with what really shows up. So his speed is kind of lacking, and it's kind of hard to judge that speed, because I think on the field, I don't think it's a huge concern. He definitely doesn't have the fastest feet in the world. He's not going to burn you over the top consistently, where I guess it was kind of more expected of him to do that. The really big thing I like about him is that he's very strong at the catch point. Really reliable hands. He's, I would say, an underrated route runner. From the little bit of stuff I've read about this guy that other people have on scouting reports, I feel like a lot of people don't really highlight his route running ability. And the big thing for me is that his ceiling is really high because of what his early on reported 40 times were. If he can somehow tap into that and unlock that, he has other things going for him with good hands, solid route runner. He's really good after the catch. He's got a solid frame. So if he comes to the combine this week and he runs, like in the 4.4s even. Like, I think that he could skyrocket his his projection, because right now his projected time is a 4.65, which is on the much slower side of things. He's an older prospect, 23 years old, which isn't terrible. And I know the other big thing is that he has had injury concern. Obviously, he dealt with a shoulder injury this past year, and I think he's had injuries beforehand. But I think he has a really high ceiling based off of his speed. And even if he doesn't run great, I still think he could be really good, because good hands, good route runner, and decent sized frame. I still think that he can get on the field and get some opportunities. All right, so with that being said, let's get on to our next guy. At 14, I have Caden Prather from Maryland, 6'3", 210. For his prospect score, I have an 80.84. As true talent, I see as a late day 2 guy. And for this draft projected, I'm thinking about the 5th round. Big thing about Prather that I like is his size, and he moves well for his size. A big thing with moving well, too, is that he creates solid separation. There's a lot of guys who are faster, and they're even smaller than him, that if they're running in a straight line, they're going to be faster than Prather. They're more deep threat options, but don't create the same separation that he creates. I think he has really good body control as well. And like I said before, I think that he's a solid route runner, creates good separation, good hands, a lot of positives in his game that I liked. And I think a lot of it is going to translate well to the NFL. I know his teammate Ty Felton, I feel like a lot of people are a lot higher on him because he just had bigger numbers at Maryland. But Prather, I'm a big fan of. Like I said, I think he's very fluid for his size. He's overall just a really big target. He's going to be one of the bigger guys in the league. A big thing to watch out for, too, is going to end up being his 40 time. His projected 40 time is a 4.5 flat. If he runs under that, I think that he could shoot at boards. But, I just think that overall he's very solid, and I think that he has a really high floor coming into the NFL. And lacking the deep speed might kind of limit his ability, but I think that same thing with Ja'Cory Brooks, big target, good hands, good route runner. I think that's gonna be, have an ability for him to, see the field and get opportunities early on, which could end up helping. And obviously transfer from West Virginia. Didn't really have the greatest numbers this past year, but like I said, Ty Felton really got a ton of the work. But he's not going to be, same with Ja'Cory Brooks and Caden Prather. I don't think these guys are going to be guys that come in and are a true number one, absolute, alphas, anything like that. But I think they could be a really good addition to a team that needs just more of an X receiver that isn't necessarily a dominant X receiver, but someone who could be a good pairing to a really good Z or a really good slot that they have. But yeah, moving on to 13, I have Kobe Hudson from UCF. And I'll be honest with you, I did not watch Kobe Hudson's tape until pretty recently. I thought I was pretty, not necessarily done with my receivers, but I had watched full film on like 26 guys it was. I ended up deciding to go back. I watched Kobe Hudson. I watched Ricky White. I watched a few other guys. Some guys that basically I heard some other people kind of high up on. I thought, I haven't watched these guys yet. I'm going to go back and watch them. I ended up really, really liking Kobe Hudson. So he's out of UCF, 6'1", 200 pounds, really solid frame. The prospect score I have for him is 83.10. His true talent is a late day 2, and the draft projection, I think he's going to be a 5th round pick. This past year, he had 47 receptions, 770 yards, and 4 touchdowns. The one thing that stands out, especially, it's going to be very similar to Ja'Cory Brooks, that his 40 time is only projected to be around a 4.60. Kobe Hudson is not the fastest guy. Unlike Ja'Cory Brooks, there's not really any wavering. Is this guy faster? What's going on with the speed? Kobe Hudson, I think, is another guy who has a really high floor, but his ceiling is going to be kind of capped because of that speed. Kobe Hudson overall, I think, is just an elite route runner. I think he might have some of the best release packages and just overall might be the best route runner in this class. I love the way his footwork is at the line of scrimmage. He gets off the line really quick, creates a ton of separation instantly, and he doesn't have elite speed, but that separation allows him to get open quickly. And I don't think he's really ever going to be a threat deep down the field but intermediate and short throws, like profiling is kind of a bigger slot or maybe something like that, I think he could be really good at, simply just because he gets open. This guy is constantly open. He's got really good hands. He's got a really high IQ in terms of how to utilize a defender's kind of balance against him. Overall, it's the same thing with Prather and with Ja'Cory Brooks. Some of these guys you're going to find on my rankings, I, a lot of the times, prioritize and like guys with higher floors than I do with guys with higher ceilings. Just because I feel like it transfers over better, especially with receivers. Because if you get a guy in who hangs onto the ball and gets open, like he's going to get on the field, you know. And my comp for Kobe Hudson is actually Dontavian Wicks. Both are bigger receivers, but really aren't that fast. I think Wicks only ended up running something like a 4.62 when he ran his 40. So both bigger receivers, but elite separators. I would say Hudson's probably got better hands than Wicks does even coming out. But I think Wicks was probably like a 5th or 6th round pick, something like that. So I see them very comparable in terms of their skill set, in terms of where they're going to be getting drafted because of the tools that they have. At number 12, this might shock some people, but I have Isaiah Bond from Texas. 5'11", 180. His prospect score, I have a 73.82. His true talent, I have a mid-day 2. And his draft projection, I have a 3rd round pick. One thing that you're going to find really quickly here is that where I'm projecting some of these guys to go and where I think their talents are based off of is I'm actually pretty high on this receiving class. I think this class in general, there's not really like the huge big names at the top like there was last year with Neighbors and Odunze and Marv. Like obviously there's Tet, and you know Tet's a pretty big name, and you can put a Travis Hunter. Just because a lot of people know him because of, you know, playing both sides, Heisman, all that. But at 12, I have Isaiah Bond. And a big thing why I'm kind of low on Isaiah Bond is because a little bit of injury concern. He's not a great route runner. And just kind of the lack of production this past year. I remember when Bond transferred to Texas, and I'm not a Texas fan or anything, but I thought, like, this guy's going to be a baller. He's going to end up going like mid-first round, very similar to kind of how Xavier Worthy was last year. Because I think they're somewhat similar players, really fast burners, kind of struggle against press man. Really, you know, they're not elite after the catch, but they can just kind of fly. But just Isaiah Bond, the raw talent is there in terms of the speed. I mean, I think he has a good chance to run a sub 4.3. He's only 20 years old. You know, he's got a lot of things going for him. His ceiling is extremely, extremely, extremely high. But there's so many things I don't like about his game. Obviously, like I said, he struggles against press man. He's a smooth route runner, but he lacks spatial awareness. I remember hearing this on the NFL Stock Exchange podcast, and I went back and I watched him on Bond's film, and he'll kind of run himself into coverage with routes. His spatial awareness of understanding when to kind of sit down and when to stop, that's something that he needs to work on, because there's a lot of times that he is open and he'll just kind of run himself into coverage, and either A, leads to him just not getting the ball, or B, the ball getting thrown into, you know, a heavy contested spot where it could have been thrown into a, you know, more open space. His route tree is limited, I would say. I'm not really too concerned, just because, you know, his game is deep balls. I could be completely wrong about Isaiah Bond, and he could end up being incredible, and, you know, he could be catching bombs every single play, you know. But I think that in terms of, like, besides running go routes right now, I don't really think he brings a ton to the table. But the thing is that speed is so important, and it matters so much more than just what happens in the pass game. Look at the Packers last year. Christian Watson, when he was on the field compared to when he was off the field, the Packers, like, big time play percentage was like first in the league compared to like last in the league. So just having speed, even if you don't get the ball, it matters so much more in opening up run games. Defenses have to play too high. You know, they can't leave you in one-on-one coverage, et cetera, et cetera. So he's got an insanely high ceiling. His floor is low for me. I think I'm just not that high on him overall. Going into 11, I have Tez Johnson from Oregon, 5'9", 160. Prospect score I have for Tez is an 84.20. And for his true talent, I have a midday 2. And his draft projection, I have him projected to be picked in the 4th round. This might come as a surprise. I saw a lot of people really high on Tez after the Senior Bowl, and then people kind of started taking into consideration how small he is, because I think he ended up even being smaller than people thought. So a big thing, I don't know if you'll see this with other people, but I know with me at least, I have Tez and I have Isaiah Bond kind of right next to each other. And I feel like they're going to kind of be next to each other in a lot of people rankings. And the thing is they're very different receivers, because Bond is a guy that's going to beat you deep down the field with speed. Tez is going to beat you by just creating separation, using your leverage against yourself, just very jittery, very twitched up route running wise. But the way I see it is both these guys are smaller guys with elite speed. So I think to compare them similarly, if they both go to the combine and say Bond runs a 4.28 or something crazy, and Tez runs like a 4.35, like Tez could easily really fall down boards, and 4.35 is still blazingly fast, but his size is the biggest concern. If Tez was 2 inches taller and 30 pounds heavier, like I think he'd be a lock first round pick, but he also probably wouldn't move as smoothly as he does being that much bigger. Obviously, big thing with Tez that everyone knows, he was a Troy transfer, essentially brothers with Bo Nix. Just Tez Johnson, when you watch him, he's always open. He's a guy, no matter what, he's always going to be open. Great route runner. I think probably him and Kobe Hudson and maybe like Kyle Williams are probably the best route runners in the class. All those guys they just make people miss, and I mean not make people miss, but they lose guys when they're running their routes. Tez, he's everything before the catch is great. Only issue is after the catch, he's just so small that he's not going to run through guys. He's could make some guys miss. Obviously, blocking packages, it's not like he can really block anyone because he's so tiny. This thing, I wouldn't necessarily call Tez a my guy, but I think a lot of people, which is fair to say, a lot of people have him compared to Tank Dell, who's another really small guy. And obviously Tank Dell, he's been in the league for 2 years and he's had 2 severe leg injuries now. So definitely the size is going to be a huge factor. But I just think when I watch him, the way he moves, the way he runs routes, he's got really good hands. He's super twitched up. Just very good IQ, like really good quarterback's friend in terms of being kind of a safety outlet, of always being open, always going to hang on to the ball. It's just that size is really going to hurt him more than anything. And I think I'm probably a little higher on Tez than probably what the consensus is right now. And definitely, like I said before with Isaiah Bond, I'm definitely lower on Isaiah Bond than what the consensus is. But moving on. At number 10, we have Jalen Noel. Noel, I think it's Noel. Out of Iowa State. He's 5'10", 196. Prospect score I have for Noel is 81-74. His true talent I have as a mid-day 2 pick, and I believe he's going to be picked in about the 3rd round would be my current projection for him. His stats from last year, he had 80 catches. Basically, just ran under 1,200 yards, 8 touchdowns. His projected 40 time is a 4.45. That's something I'm going to be really interested in watching, because I feel like when I watch him on film, on tape, he's got really good burst and really good acceleration. He looks like he moves fast. So I think I honestly think he could run like sub 4.4. Just based off of how he moves on film. Granted, in terms of the projected 40 times, I'm going off of what Draft Buzz has for players' 40s. So I don't necessarily know if theirs is based off of just predictive, or if there's like prior kind of like training camp stuff they ran before the season. But I honestly think that he could easily run faster than 4.45, and at least he looks faster than 4.45 on the field. So even if he runs, 4.4, or if he runs like a 4.44, like a 4.46, I still think that he's fast enough on the field, and like his actual like game playing speed is gonna play. He's very, I don't want to say necessarily compact, but comparatively to Isaiah Bond or Tez Johnson, who are some sub 6 foot receivers, he's a lot more girthy in the legs. He got more muscle on him, got more size to him. He's a really good route runner. I think his tree is going to have to be expanded at the next level. He's got a really good release package. He probably has one of my favorite release packages because, you know, a lot of people who are watching this might have seen some of the clips from the Senior Bowl. A lot of guys will put their foot on the ground, hit some stutter steps, some shoulder wiggles, whatnot. And Noel's is just very smooth, quick, one step, two step kind of, you know, shoulder drop, get past the guy. And I like how simple that is. And he always seems to be open. He's another one of those guys. He's always open. There was some times, I'm trying to remember the specific game, but there was a specific game I watched where he had like 3 routes in a row and he just completely made the defender like fall over on his breaks. So I really like his route running. The biggest concern that I have for him is that his hands aren't the best. His hands are okay, and the issue is that in tightly contested catches, his hands are lacking, I would say. His release package, his route running ability, he looks pretty good after the catch too. I would say like he's not like amazing after the catch, but he's definitely not bad after the catch. That combined with really good route running, really good release packages, I think that he could easily make an impact early on. And there's a lot of times where people talk about having concerns about guys' hands and they come into the NFL and they don't have really a drop problem at all. So that could be a case with him. I think if that is the case, his ceiling is really, really high. My current comp I actually have on him is Jaden Reed. I think they're both very similar in the sense that I think Reed looks faster on field than what he ran. Jaden Reed has a lot better hands than Noel, but both are really good route runners and can kind of run routes on all 3 levels of the field. You know, Jalen Noel can run a short route, he can run intermediate routes, he can run deep routes. I would say even though he can run at all levels, I still think his tree needs to be expanded a little bit because it was very simplistic, like curls, outs, streaks, you know, nines, goes. So I think that it's going to have to expand a little bit at the next level, but I really like Noel for his route running nuance combined with his size and his speed. At number 9, we have Jack Besh. Out of TCU, 6'1", 214. My prospect score for Jack Besh is a 78.20. True talent is a mid-day 2, and the draft projection is a 3rd round pick. So, I'm going to say this right now. I think a lot of people are really, really hyping up Jack Besh. And it's not that I think he's bad, but I feel like a month ago from when I was recording this, he was like kind of right outside a lot of top people's top 10. Now I see people I see people's rankings, I see them talk about him, and he's pushing like top 5. So I don't necessarily think that he's not good. I just think that his ceiling isn't that high, and that could completely change at the combine. His projected 40 time is a 4.55. If he runs like in the 4.4s, like I think that my opinions could change a lot. And I know it doesn't make sense to really weigh an entire prospect's opinion on what their 40 time is. I just think with Besh, he's great hands, probably the best hands in the class. After the catch, he's fine. He's a really good route runner. He's a good run blocker. He can run the outside too. I think that he could profile as a big slot, just because he isn't the fastest, at least on tape. The way I see Besh is that, which contradicts what I was saying before, how I value guys who have a high floor. Besh feels to me like one of those guys who I'm gonna say that, oh yeah, he's okay, he's fine, this or that, and then a year from now he's like in Rookie of the Year talks. You know what I mean? He's just one of those guys I think that no matter what, he's gonna get it done. And I just think that the guys I have ranked above him have like borderline, I don't want to say superstar potential, maybe star potential. Like I said, I'm really, really high on this class. I think a lot of people are really sleeping on the wide receivers. This class is loaded with really quality guys in the back end, and I think like the top guys could really, really like be great receivers. A lot of it, though, I will say, is kind of, situation dependent, which, as always, is the case with a lot of guys. But, Besh had a good year last year at TCU. When he went to LSU, he had a really good year, and receivers that do well at LSU always do well in the league. So, I obviously I'm going to redo my rankings after the combine. I'm going to dive back into some of the film, and he easily could change. Like I said at the beginning of the video, all these rankings are definitely subject to change after the combine and after maybe we hear some more rumors and some team interviews and this or that. But it's not that I necessarily think that Jack Bash is bad. I just think that his ceiling isn't crazily high compared to some of these other guys, and I think the class is really good. So, moving on to number 8, I have Alec Iomanner out of Stanford, 6'2", 210. My prospect score for Alec is 73-36. My true talent is a mid-day 2, and my draft projection is the second round. Now, I know for people who, obviously, you're going to look at the prospect score, you're going to be like, what the hell is this guy talking about? How was Caden Prather an 80-something, and Alec Iomanner and Jack Bash are both in the 70s, and how was a Kobe Hudson up in the 80s when these guys are faster? You know what I mean? Listen, I'll be 100% honest with you. I just kind of made this grading this year, so I'm still trying to work out the kinks in terms of like how it works and how exactly can you take it and assign it to players and what you see on the field. My thing with Alec Iomanner is that I don't think he's that fast. His projected 40 time is a 4.42. He's got a track background. He's like, I don't want to say he turns like a semi, but like his agility really isn't that good. That's one of my biggest knocks on him, is that he turns very slowly. His feet are kind of slow. He doesn't really have the most flexible hips. When he starts running in a straight line, like he gets going and he's got these long strides. I just think that the stride length, he doesn't have like the short, quick feet. So I don't think he's going to run that fast in his 40 because it takes him that much more to get going. He just doesn't have great acceleration. His hands are very iffy, in my opinion. Like he'll go up and he'll make some crazy ass catches. He had one against Syracuse this year, and obviously the year before, the one of Travis Hunter to, I think it was either in overtime or sent in overtime or something like that, where basically he completely mossed his ass, cooked him. And like his just hands are so inconsistent, because there's times where I feel like there's really bad concentration drops, or there's catches in traffic that he just doesn't hang on to, balls that he should or other guys in this class would. And it's very up and down. His route running, I think, is not bad, but because of his just inability really to have these quick feet, have these quick hips, make these quick turns that other guys that are his size are making, or are decent route runners at that same size, I just think that he's below average. He doesn't create good separation. I see some people really high in Alec Iomanner. I've seen some people have him as high as like wide receiver 4, even wide receiver 3, I think I've seen. And I still think it can be really good, because obviously there's certain games where he just dominates, and I think that's 100% within him, where there's days that he can just go out and dominate, throw jump balls, he pulls them down, runs through 2 guys, takes 60 yards to the house. Like, it's definitely possible. I just think that it's very inconsistent, and there needs to be more consistency with his game. A big thing for him too is that he's a great run blocker. My comp for him is actually a more athletic Alan Lazard. Both of them are very similar in the sense that they don't really create too much separation. Alan Lazard has never really had great hands, but both are really good run blockers. So I definitely think Alec Iomanner is a much more faster player and more quick than Alan Lazard is, but I still don't think, comparatively to other guys who are about his size in this class, I still don't think he's that twitched up. And because of that's why I'm a little bit lower on him. At number 7, we have Jalen Royals out of Utah State, 6 foot, 210. Prospect score I have for Royals is 83.40. His true talent, I have at the top 50 grade on him. And his draft projection, I have the second round. Like I said, I am very, very high on this class. I fell in love with Royals. The first game I watched him was against Boise State, and the way Royals was able to just catch balls in short areas and just make a 20-yard pickup out of it. There's one specific play which I saw on Twitter. I know I have the clip downloaded. I might throw it up here in the video. He basically catches a slant and just runs through 3 guys and takes it like 70 yards to the house. I'm pretty sure that ended up getting called back for like a holding or something like that, but his after the catch ability is elite. And his speed, I'm really interested to see what he runs. 4.38 is what DraftBuzz has him predicted at. I know I was seeing on Twitter that there was apparently rumors that like he was hand timed like close to like a 4.3 flat at Utah State. So he's the only group of 5 wide receiver in my top 15. I think that's kind of a cool notion too. He's really the only group of 5 receiver in my top like 20 or so. He's got really good speed. I know I see people saying, oh, he doesn't really have long speed. I don't think that's an issue. I think he has good long speed. I don't think he has elite long speed, but I think he has good long speed. He's very, very strong. Very strong at the catch point. Really hard to bring down. He really fills out his pants. You know, he's kind of like Debo, where he's got a fucking shit ton of ass and thighs back there. He creates good separation. Just like I said, he's got good quickness. He's got good long speed. I think he can win on the outside and in the slot. I know that I think technically he's only 5'11 and 3/4, but 6 feet basically rounded up. Obviously, in terms of receivers that are playing the outside, that's not really, I don't want to necessarily say ideal, but obviously you see more guys who are sub 6 foot playing on the inside. I think just his strength and his acceleration, everything like that, his ability to beat press man. There was a clip at the Senior Bowl where a guy tried to put hands on him to press him, and he just shoved him over and was wide open. I love his strength. I love his intensity. I love him all around. Jalen Royals is definitely my guy in this draft. I'm going to make that very clear. I had a hard time not putting him a lot higher. When I first did all my scouting, I was like, this guy might end up being like a top 3 receiver for me. I ended up toning it back a little bit, but hey, he could have a great combine and I could jump right back up on him. My comp for him actually is a diet AJ Brown, and I know that a lot of people who talk about him think that, oh, he really only has like this elite kind of yak ability, where he's making guys miss, catches short balls, gets jet sweeps, gets these screens, and turns like a play where he's got 2 guys in front of him into like a 12-yard pickup. While I do say yes, he does have that Deebo Samuel-esque kind of thing to him, the way I see A.J. Brown is that A.J. Brown's a lot better route runner than Deebo is, and I think Royals is a lot better route runner than Deebo is. Deebo turns like a semi-truck. Royals has very quick hips, very quick feet. He can stop, he can start. So that's where I compare him to A.J. Brown, because A.J. Brown's also really good after the catch too. Obviously, A.J. Brown's a really high comp. Do I think he's going to come to the league and be A.J. Brown day one? No. I just think it's more so it's the play style is very similar. But I'm a huge fan of Jalen Royals. Love the guy. I think that second round might be a little bit sweet, but honestly, I think he's going to run well at the combine. I think teams are going to see his production, and I think like mid-late round, teams that could use some extra receiving help are going to, going to nab him. Teams like the Chiefs, teams like the Steelers, even a team like the Niners, in the second round could get him. If they want to get rid of Debo, go ahead and get your Debo replacement, who's better than Debo, but, you didn't hear that from me. But moving on to number 6, I have Trey Harris out of Ole Miss, 6'3", 210, 82.18 prospect score, top 50 grade on him, and I believe he's going to be a second-round pick. I love Trey Harris. I would say my 2 favorite receivers in this class are probably Trey Harris and Jalen Royals, who I have right next to each other. I've liked Trey Harris since Louisiana Tech, if I'm being honest. He always has been productive. No matter where he goes, no matter what talent he plays against, he's always been productive. His stats last year had 60 catches for right over 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns. His 40 times projected to be a 4.55. I think that he honestly can get a sub 4.5. The big, huge red flag with Trey Harris, though, is that he's very injury prone. He hasn't played a full season without getting injured. This past year, it was it his shoulder? And I think the year before it was like a knee thing. Either way, he's never fully healthy, and I think that could really be a concern at the next level. I see a lot of people on Twitter comparing him to like DK or like AJ Brown, and I think that's just simply because it's an Ole Miss receiver who's a bigger guy. If anything, I would compare him to like a Rome Odunze kind of guy. I think he's slower than Rome, but I still think he's fast enough. But Trey Harris overall, he doesn't lack elite long speed, but good acceleration, good in and out of routes. I think he has great hands, to be honest with you. In terms of contested catches, like, he gives everything going up for that ball. Like, he will give his body completely up. An effort like that plays at the next level. It's just it could also kind of lead to him being more banged up, which is already an issue. I think he creates really good separation for his size. I think he's really solid after the catch for his size as well. The way he moves, the way he's able to make guys miss and just keep his legs turning, like, I think it's really plus thing for his size. Just overall, like a really, really solid talent, I would say. And honestly, if it wasn't for guys like Tet or Luther Burden or like Emeka Ibuka, like if Emeka came out last year and Tet stayed another year, like I think Trey Harris would arguably like in contention for being the first receiver picked off the board, which is a hot take. I just think that a lot of people look at Ole Miss, they say, oh, this is a gimmicky system. Oh, he's running a lot of comebacks and a lot of posts, and there's not really a huge route tree here. Against top-tier talent, he makes guys miss after the catch, he creates separation, and he hangs onto the ball, and he produces against the best of the best talent in the SEC. And I just think people overthink it in that sense. He's I don't know what else you can look at. He's in the best conference. He produces. He looks good on film. Stats past the line. Like I said, the only thing for me is the injury concern. If he wasn't injured at all, I would probably have him at wide receiver 2. Like if he never had any sort of injury concerns, I'd probably have him all the way up at wide receiver 2. I just think that because of how physical he is compared with the injury concern, it could definitely bring up some red flags, and some teams might not even be interested in drafting him at all simply based off of that. Not to say that he'd be, an undrafted free agent or anything, just that I think some teams would just have him off their board as he's not going to be a guy we want to get just because of his injury concern and history. But moving on to number 5, we have Matthew Golden out of Texas, 6 feet tall, 195. I got a prospect score of 8130, true talent, another top 50 guy, and my projection for him is I think he's going to be a late first round pick. And this could be a little bit, I don't want to say crazy necessarily, because I feel like a lot of people, when they talk about this class, they say, oh, this is a really, I don't want to say bad class, but I think a lot of it is I talk to people who aren't really fully involved into the draft and don't really fully prospect guys, and they just think, oh yeah, there's no Neighbors, there's no Odunze, there's no Marv, there's no Brock Bowers, so this class is bad, and that's fantasy football brain rot for you. No, yeah, I have a first round talent on Golden. His stats this past year, 59 or 58 catches for 987 yards, 9 touchdowns. His projected 40 times of 4.38. I think that's probably about accurate. I think he runs a sub 4.4, but I don't really think it's too much lower than a 4.4. Golden overall is just a really solid player. Really good speed, really good route runner. His hands are really solid, creates separation. He's a more smaller frame, but he makes contested catches consistently. I think the big thing with him is I could see him struggling on the outside at the next level just because he's not the biggest guy. But even as a slot or as a Z, I think that he would still be really good. My pro comp for him is Brandon Ayuk without the elite yak. It's not that I think Matthew Golden doesn't offer anything after the catch. I think just Ayuk was so good after the catch where Golden isn't that good. Golden overall is just very solid, very reliable. I don't think he'll be a good number 1 option on a team. If he's your only guy, I don't think it will work out well. Not because I don't think he has a talent. I just think because of size and scheme and that stuff like that. I think a team like the Commanders, he'd be a great pairing alongside Terry. I think a team like the Lions, where he could be on the outside with him and JMO, have elite speed, and have Amon-Ra on the inside. Those are 2 teams that really pop into my head that are late first rounds. Even the Chargers, the Steelers, guys who already have another kind of, staple in the receiving room, and adding him as an elite complement to that. But yeah, moving on. Number 4, I have Jaden Higgins at Iowa State. 6'4", 217. My prospect score I got on him is an 85-56. My true talent is another top 50 guy. And I do think he goes in the second round, but I think it's in the top end of the second round. His stats from last year, had 87 receptions, 1,100 yards, almost 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns. And his projected 40 time is a 4.55. I think that's more accurate for him. But the thing is with Higgins, and if anyone's watched him or if you've seen clips at the Senior Bowl, the way he moves at his size is I don't want to say unheard of, but he is so fluid. He's so agile. He's so quick. And the big thing with these taller guys, these taller receivers, is normally they don't have that elite quickness or that elite agility. Normally it's just, if they have speed, it's kind of more straight end speed. He looks so smooth in and out of his routes. He's got elite hands. I think he only dropped like 3 balls in his like entire collegiate experience. I want to say last 2 years at Iowa State, it was like 3 balls, something like that. Don't 100% quote me on that because I don't have the stats pulled up right in front of me. The big thing I think for him is that he would have to expand his tree and his release package. I don't think it's bad. I just think that at Iowa State they kind of had a I don't want to say basic offense, but a little bit more basic. But he's such a good route runner. I don't have any issue with that. I think he profiles great as a big slot. My pro comp to him is Drake London. You're going to hear that a lot with him and probably Tet, just because they're big guys who move unlike how big guys normally move. But Higgins is so silky smooth. He's always open, always catches the ball. He's not going to be a guy who, you're going to throw a 60-yard bomb to and beats guys down the field like that. But he just overall is so great, such a high floor. I think he could come in instantly to pretty much any team and like almost be a 1 right away. You know what I mean? But yeah, Higgins, if I'm like a team like the Titans or even like the Giants or say the Browns go quarterback, basically any of these teams that could go quarterback at the top of the first, I would double down and get you a weapon that's reliable as him at the top of the second, because I think there's a chance he goes late first. Honestly, I don't think he will, simply just because there's a lot of really good like defensive talent in this draft class. So I think because of that, he's going to kind of be pushed down the board a little bit. If it wasn't for the D-line and edge class being so freaking stacked, I would think that he'd be a first round pick. But just because of how stacked it is and how needy some of these teams are with D-line, that I think he's going to be pushed into the top of the second. But moving on to my number 3 guy, I have Emeka Egbuka at Ohio State, 6'1", 205. My prospect score on him is an 80.76, and my true talent is top 50, and my draft projection is the first round. Emeka, or I've heard it say Amika. I think Emeka sounds cooler, so I'm just going to keep calling him Emeka. He is so solid. Another one of these guys who, very similar to Golden, not in the sense of their game, but very similar to Golden, very similar to what I just was talking about, Higgins, very similar to even like a Trey Harris, where like they're just very polished. And I would think Egbuka might be the most polished receiver coming into the league. I think he might have the highest overall floor because he just is. As I was saying, Egbuka is just so polished, a great route runner, great hands. He's got really solid speed. His projected 40 times a 4.3 flat. I don't think he's going to be that fast. I would think he's going to be more like a 4.34, closer to like a 4.35. I don't really think it's going to matter too much. He's so fluid in and out of his routes. He's always open, knows, the right kind of areas to sit down in the zone. It creates good separation. His route tree is very developed. Just overall is just such a high floor. I think probably him and Tet have the 2 highest floors in this class, simply just because they're very polished, and Tet obviously has other elite intangibles that Emeka simply doesn't have just because of the size and everything. But Emeka, he's someone to get excited about because he's the kind of guy who you draft and you throw him in the slot and he's your slot receiver for 15 years. He is so good. He is going to be incredible day one. He's only 22 years old still, too. He could have came out last year, decided to go back, won a national championship. He's proven production against the best talent. His stats line up. What's on paper lines up. He doesn't really have injury concerns. He is just overall really solid. He's a good blocker too. Like, he's got just kind of everything going for him. And the other reason why I don't have him ranked higher, because initially I was actually lower on Emeka, and I went back and I watched everything. It's just he's so solid I can't have him any lower than number 3. And the only reason I don't have him higher is because I personally love Burden, and Tet is so good. I think it's hard to make an argument for anyone being better than Tet in this class. But Moving on to number 2, if you can use your whatever it's called, discernible, whatever, subtraction. You know what I'm talking about. Luther Burden the third, out of Missouri, 5'11", 208, prospect score of 87.22, my highest ranked prospect score out of all receivers, top 25 true talent, and he's gonna be a first round pick. I love Luther Burden. And the biggest knock I see against him is that this past year, he didn't have the best year. And people are going to be like, oh, well, the reason why, listen, Brady Cook sucks. I'm going to be upfront with you. Brady Cook fucking sucks. He took a step back this last year, was just flat out bad. The O-line wasn't that great. I mean, I love Armamenbu, but I think the rest of the O-line wasn't that great. So it's not like these pockets were super clean. They played a pretty rough schedule. And they're like a wide zone run-based power, or it's like a power wide zone kind of based scheme that they got there. Like, they want to run the ball. They don't want to go out there and sling the fucking rock 50 times a game like some of these other, teams do, like a fucking Ole Miss does, So I just think a lot of it was because simply Burden didn't really have the opportunities to put up these insane stats as some of these other guys did in some other situations. And if you look at last year, Burden was unguardable last year. Burden could go up and moss guys 3 inches taller than him, bigger than him. He'd beat him down below. He'd catch the ball, make 5 guys miss, and take it to the crib for 50 yards. Like, Burden can do so much. He's very similar to Matthew Golden in terms of being smaller, but still being able to kind of win against bigger defenders. His projected 40 time here is a 40.41. I think he's going to run faster than that. I honestly think he's going to be closer to like a 4.35. He is so explosive. He's only 21 years old. It's just elite burst, good hands. He's smaller on paper, but I mean, he fills out his pants well at 208. He's a good contested catcher for being smaller. Really good route runner. I don't think he's going to be able to consistently win on the outside. Like, he's definitely not an X receiver. He's going to have to be a Z, or you put him in the slot. But, I mean, my pro comp for him is a bite-sized CeeDee Lamb. He's smaller than CeeDee, but the big thing with CeeDee coming out of CeeDee was so good after the catch. And that's just how I see Burden. Like, give Burden a slant, a 5-yard slant. He can take it 70 yards to the house. He can make 4 guys miss and take it to the crib. He can beat a guy deep on a go ball. He can run a dig inside the numbers, take a shot over the middle, stay on his feet, and still pick up another 10 yards. Like, I love Burden's game overall. I think Burden's incredible. I think a lot of people are sleeping on him. I saw Mel Kiper's mock draft. I think Mel Kiper didn't even have him going in the first round, which is fucking absurd to me. If Luther Burden slips to the second round, personally, I'm going to be so pissed off because whatever team gets him is going to be getting a steal because this guy is insane. I know that there's some effort concerns because, on tape when the ball wasn't coming his way or there was some frustrations, he would kind of physically show it. And honestly, man, I don't blame him. Mizzou's a shitty school. I was actually in Columbia within the last 3 months, the city where Mizzou's campus is. Fucking awful. I do not like Mizzou. So if you're watching this and you're a big Mizzou guy, fuck you. No, I'm kidding. Genuinely though, Mizzou is not a great football program. They never really have been. They've kind of always been the laughingstock of the SEC. So I don't blame him for having a shitter mentality because if I was there too, I'd be like, fuck man, I'm way better than this, fucking, but no, I love Burden. That's enough for my Burden rant. I think that realistically, I think he should go within the top 20. But we're going to see. He should be, if he's not a first round pick though, like I said, I'm going to be pissed off. But last, but obviously not least, we have Tataroa McMillan out of Arizona. 6'5", 212, prospect score of 85.66. True talent is a top 10 pick, and draft projection, early first round. Tet is absurd. I think last year if he came out, because I don't even think he was eligible to come out last year because he's only 21. Excuse me. If he would have came out last year, I would have had him over Odunze, and I would have had Neighbors and Marv over him. Which isn't to say that he's any sort of bum or anything, because last year was a really good class. But Ted just, man, he has it all what you want in an alpha prototypical X receiver. He's big. He can make plays after the catch. I mean, he's got glue on his hands. I swear, any ball thrown his way, he's snatching that bitch out of the air. He's a really good route runner for his size. The only thing is that he doesn't create elite separation, but I mean, when you're that big, no one really is going to create elite separation. Like I said before too, like a lot of people I see like the Drake London comps because Drake London was very similar. Huge receiver, good hands. Didn't always create the best separation when hung onto the ball. Drake London obviously has worked out really well in the NFL. My comp for Tet, which is even higher than Drake London, I think is Nico Collins. The thing that Tet has that Drake London at least didn't really have is that Tet will get the ball and he like looks to be a playmaker after the catch. Like he is looking to make guys miss or to run through arm tackles or stiff arm guys. And I just think that Nico Collins has like this very alpha mentality. Like when you're a quarterback and you have a Nico Collins, he's always open. You know, you see that with CJ Stroud, that there's just times where, fuck it, you know, Nico's one-on-one coverage, but it doesn't matter. Like I'm throwing the ball because I trust him and he comes down with it. Tet is that kind of player. Tet's the kind of guy that is perfect for like a young quarterback where you throw it in his vicinity and he's coming down with it. He is so good. I think he's the kind of guy that elevates an entire receiving room, not just with his talent in that sense too, but he's a great guy. He's a leader. And when you have a guy as big as him on the outside, like it's just going to create more opportunities for other guys because, you know, how many corners can you say can go out there and say, hey, go one-on-one with the 6'5", 212 guy? You know, like not many corners are going to be able to just go out there and lock him down. So I love Tet. His projected 40 times a 4.5, and I think that's about right. That doesn't really bother me just because his size and his hands, everything else is just so elite. It's just so top 1%. His hands are ginormous too. Like he comes down with everything. And I love Tet as a prospect. Like I said before, I love this entire class. I think a lot of people are really sleeping on it. I think there's a lot of late round gems. I think that you're going to see guys in this class who get picked in the 6th and 7th round that end up, you know, making teams and end up making a little bit of noise and end up being wide receiver 3s or 4s on some of these squads. I don't think that necessarily you're going to find as many like late round stars, but I just there's so much high quality talent that has a high floor that I think will play from day one in the league. But that's enough of my rambling. These are my top 15 receivers in the wide receiver class. Just as a recap, 15 Ja'Cory Brooks, 14 Caden Prather, 13 Kobe Hudson, at 12 is Isaiah Bond, 11 is Tez Johnson, 10 is Jalen Noel, 9 is Jack Besh, 8 is Alec Iomanner, 7 is Jalen Royals, 6 is Trey Harris, number 5 is Matthew Golden, number 4 is Jaden Higgins, 3 is Emeka Abuka, 2 is Luther Burden III, and number 1 is Tetaroa McMillan. If you guys like this video, you know, I'd love it if you guys would subscribe and leave a like. And if you think that I'm complete, you know, bullshit and I don't know what I'm talking about, let me know in the comments. I would love to, you know, not argue or fight, but yeah, I'd love to have a discussion in the comments. Like I said before, it's one of my favorite things about the draft is that at the end of the day, no one's right. No one knows what the hell's going to happen with any of these guys or who's actually going to be good or not. So it involves so much discussion to be had. You know, if you think I'm a dumbass, say that. I'd be more than happy to read what you have to say. If you think my system for ranking these guys or how my prospect score works is bullshit, I probably agree with you a little bit, but no. You know, like I said before too, I'm hoping to at least maybe get my top 15 running backs out before Friday, before some of the more skill positions start running at the combine. But we'll see. Yeah, I mean, eventually if you guys want another video too of either like a top 50 big board or breaking down how my prospect score works, what I'm kind of utilizing it for. Like I said, it's a work in progress. I'm kind of expecting next year it to be a little bit different. Right now, like I said, it's my first year doing like full rankings for every position and actually taking notes and assigning a score. So I'm sure once I do it a little bit more, it's going to be a little bit more smoothed out and easier to understand, easier to follow, and a little bit more accurate. Because I will say right now, even I'm the one who created it, it feels kind of up and down and a little finicky. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed, be sure to like and subscribe. And if you think I'm stupid, leave a comment. But other than that, thank you guys so much for watching, and yeah, have a good one.